Hello, everybody. My name is Dave Jackson, and you're listening to Tales from the Backlog. This is a video games deep dive review podcast where each week I'm joined by a guest to bring a game out of the backlog, play it, and discuss. My guest today is a returning friend of the show, one host of List Off podcast and Kung Fu enthusiast. Welcome back to the show, Ryan Juengling.
Kaya.
Short and simple intro. Good to have you back on the show, Ryan.
It's always great to be on. Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Previously, Ryan and I have done a bunch of episodes of this show together. We did most recently, it was a discussion episode about how gaming influenced our taste in music. That was from May of 2024. And then a bunch of games in the back catalog as well. Episode 69 was Catherine Full Body. Episode 64 was God of War Ragnarok. Elden Ring was episode 36, and Death's Door was episode 18. So we have a lot of stuff together in the history of Tales from the Backlog. It's good to have Ryan back on today, because today we're going to talk about Sifu, which is an action game developed and published by Sloclap for contemporary consoles and PC in 2022. Some quick credits for Sifu. It was directed by Jordan Liani and produced by Edward Saninokone. Hopefully I'm saying that name correctly. I managed to get the whole word out in one. Now hopefully it sounded right.
I was impressed.
Good.
It sounded right to me.
That's why I do it. I hope to impress you. If this is your first time listening to the show, first of all, thank you for stopping by. I always love to hear when people check out the show for the first time. Here's how spoilers work on the podcast. We're not going to spoil the story of Sifu for a while. We're also not going to we're going to try not to talk shop too much about specific boss fights or anything like that. Anything that people who haven't played the game yet will not really be able to have context for, stuff like that. We'll warn you when spoilers are coming, and there's also a timestamp down in the show notes for when the spoilers begin. So if you don't know what Sifu is, we have some quick elevator pitches at the top of the show. I say Sifu is a playable kung fu revenge movie. Ryan, what about you?
I think that definitely sums it up. The only thing I would add is it's an extremely stylized, very cool playable kung fu revenge movie.
Yes, absolutely. The elevator goes an extra floor. We can throw in some extra adjectives into the pitch, for sure. That's a good pitch, though. The style is really cool. We'll definitely dig into that here in a bit. I played this on PS5. It is, at the time of recording, on PS Plus. I think I got it for free, something like that. I didn't have to, quote, buy it for the show. 16 hours to beat, and that includes getting the true ending, we will say. Ryan, where did you play this? How long's a playthrough?
Yeah, I played it on PS5 as well. I did have to pay for the game, but I was like a day one adopter of it.
Yeah.
It was probably about 16 to 20 hours. I spent a little more time replaying through levels, but we'll get into that.
For sure. Yeah. So right into our personal histories with this. You said you bought this either on day one or right around that day one time. What was it about Sifu that really caught your eye and made you want to jump in?
Well, I always like a good revenge tale, right? And kung fu movies as well. Mm-hmm. I think a big fan of Kill Bill and many that came before it.
Yeah.
And it did get a good amount of marketing from PlayStation. They were showing it at their showcases and definitely pushing the game. And there was a lot of good buzz leading into it. And I think it came at a lull. Like there wasn't a lot being released around that time. And the price was, the price of an indie. I can't remember if it was like $30 or $40. Mm-hmm. So that was also appealing. And yeah, I picked it right up and just, I'm happy I did.
Yeah.
I'm happy I did.
Yeah, for sure. I'm happy I did too. It just took me longer than it did for you. So I played this for the first time for this show. I played it, beat it maybe, 3-4 weeks ago now, something like that. I didn't pick it up right away, but I was always interested. There's just a lot of stuff going on. I think if I remember right, this came out it was in the neighborhood of another big release. It might have even been Elden Ring. It might have been kind of near when Elden Ring came out, before it or something like that. I don't know. 2022. All I know is that I was interested in playing it, but there was something that I was waiting for, so I didn't buy it right away. And so then,
now that you mention it, sorry to interrupt you, Dave.
It's okay.
I do remember choosing to play this because there was a bigger game coming, and I was like, oh, this will be a good lead in,
right.
a quick quick game.
Yeah, for sure. And for me, whatever that big game was, it was probably like, no, we're clearing the decks. Nothing new. We're finishing the stuff we're already playing. So it makes me think it was Elden Ring. I might be getting months mixed up. Anyway, so it fell through the cracks until, this was the winner of a Patreon poll. I decided I was playing a bunch of like really story heavy games or turn-based combat games, and I was like, I want to play an action game. So I made a Patreon poll of all action games, and Sifu won the poll. So that's why it's here. So thank you to all the patrons who voted for Sifu, and thanks to everyone who didn't vote for Sifu too. I love you as well. But that's really the reason why it got pulled out of the backlog, was it won that poll. And I'm glad that it did, because first of all, I think this game's really good. It's we're going to talk about the kind of process at arriving at the point where I think that it's really good, because there was a time where I was really struggling with this. And I think I texted you even and was like, hey, Ryan, I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah, you did.
Maybe we should get a backup game. But I think what I arrived at is that it's not that the game is like insurmountably difficult. I think this game does a bad job of teaching you how to be good at the game. And then once you do figure it out, either on your own or if you check out guides, YouTube tutorials or something like that, once this game clicks into place, it was like beauty in motion. I really, really love this. And I'm not a true ending guy, especially if it's like, you have to do extra challenge things to get a true ending. I'm mostly okay with just like either watching those on YouTube or not. Like, I really don't care about true endings a lot of the time, but I went back, I did the hard stuff to get the true ending in Sifu. So like, I ended up really, really, really loving this.
Yeah, definitely to achieve that true ending, you would have had to love it.
You have to be in. Yeah.
There has to be something bringing you back to it, definitely. I actually voted on it. So you have to now question whether or not I did this to myself just to be on the show.
Mm-hmm. I support that. That would be one of the least confrontational ways that people have invited themselves on the show.
Fair enough. I accept full responsibility then. So yeah, I agree with you. I think it prides itself on that difficulty, and it forces you to learn a system that is not typical to a lot of games. Mm-hmm. It is very much has its own mechanics, right? But once you adapt and learn what this game wants you to learn, it sings. It's beauty in motion, like you said. It's a joy to play. And I think there are a few things this game does really, really well. It initially roots itself in reality, and there's almost like a brutality to that weighted groundedness, but it does lean into the fantastic at times, and I think that's really when the game starts to shine.
Yeah, it's definitely when it starts to take on like another layer, for sure. Because one of the things I didn't mention there is that I talked about how much I grew to love the act of playing the game, the combat, the mechanics and stuff like that. I also really love the presentation in this. It is not as straightforward as it may seem if you just, look at a screenshot from the tutorial or something like that. And I think that the story is pretty cool too. And those fantastical elements lend into both of those like really well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're going to take a bit of a music break here, and when we come back, we're going to set up the story of Sifu. So Sifu begins with a kind of prologue chapter. It's actually a kind of cool thing that happens here because you've seen screenshots maybe or trailers of Sifu, and you've seen your playable character. And in the prologue, you play as somebody else. You play as a character named Yang, who is leading a raid on a kung fu school, which ends with Yang killing the master of the school and stealing an artifact. And after killing the master, Yang senses that there is a child hiding in the room, someone hiding in the room, and there's a little child hiding in a cupboard. He opens the door, instructs one of his henchmen to kill the child, and that henchman does that. And then you play as that child. So there is a magical artifact, this talisman, that can bring you back to life. And this plays into the game's probably the thing that people might know most well about this game if you've never played it, that whole like you die, you get older type mechanic. It's due to this talisman. So it brings this character back to life, this child, and then the child grows up, dedicates their life. You can choose male or female for the child. So it dedicates their life to revenge. They train in the martial arts, and they want to get revenge on Yang for killing the master of the dojo, the
Sifu.
The Sifu. That's the word. Yeah. So a revenge tale. It's a pretty simple setup here, but we've already introduced some kind of magic into it. What did you think about the story?
Yeah, I thought the setup was very cool. It immediately starts you on this power fantasy because it almost gives you like a fully loaded character to begin with, right? In this prologue. And that was neat to experiment with the different moves and to start out as who you're not going to end the story as. I thought the presentation was immediately cool, gripping, right? Like it's a rainy night, there's lightning happening. It's very moody, like right off the bat. The music sets a good tone too. But I just think that mechanic that you mentioned of every time you die, your age counter, right? Like you age. It's such a unique take on death in video games. It's very, very well done.
Yeah. Yeah, I know there's obviously other games that work with like permanent penalties for death, we'll say, but I don't think that I've seen one that literally makes your character age up, and you can see them age up. Their character model gets older. It affects their stats as you play. So it's like part of the thing. Like unless you are a master, you are going to die. You are going to get older. Yeah. It's just a matter of how old you are once you finish the levels, ultimately finish the game. What's cool about it is this is also part of the story, but it's not a part of the story that the game really dwells on. It kind of leaves you to think about this as a storytelling device as well. And once I finished the game, and we'll talk about this in the spoiler section, but once I finished the game and kind of saw how my character is looking, it really made me think about, this thing's role in storytelling, which is cool. I love it when games can get gameplay and storytelling intertwined like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it does make you question, what it cost, right?
Yeah.
And that is like the driving force behind so many revenge tales. Like, what's the ultimate cost of this revenge? Like, how far are you willing to go?
Exactly. Yeah. What is it worth to you to do this? And on your advice, I watched that secret level on the Amazon episode about Sifu today, and that deals with that too. And that was cool. It's only a 7-minute watch, so if you have Amazon Prime, like it's pretty cool, and it's really close to how things go in the game as well. So obviously 7 minutes versus 16 hours, like there's a lot that's not in that little short there, but it is kind of cool and does kind of hammer home that yes, this is one of the things that this story is kind of about. I thought the revenge tale was handled really well. You go through the levels. There's 5 levels. There are 5 kind of big bads, and there's a boss at the end of each level. All of those big bads play a role in the story. Yang and his 4 main partners, including the guy who killed you when you were a child. He's the first boss, and you learn about them as you go through the story as well, because you'll pick up lore collectibles around the levels. You'll hear people talking. Learning about these characters and their different motivations is great too, I think, because you start out the story, you're like, oh, these 5 evil assholes, right? I got to take them out. And it's not quite that simple. And the way the game handles storytelling, you'll never sit through like a 20-minute cutscene where people explain yell their motivations to each other. It's much more subtle than that. And like, this game's about the action, like no mistake. But within that, I think that they do a really good job of storytelling along the way.
Yeah, I think they deliberately took that extra step because it would have still been a good game if it was just the action. Hey, these guys are bad. Like, it's simple. They're evil. This is your revenge tale. But taking that extra step and really focusing on like what they've done in the 8 years since they killed your Sifu and where they are now and the choices they've made, it does come into play. But it's also not exposition, like you say. It has some really great environmental storytelling. There's a lot of detail throughout that, you know, if you're paying attention to things in the background or things in the environments, you will pick up on these stories for each of those 5 characters.
Yeah, for sure. And so the way that they go through those character backstories and the way they go through the revenge quest really opens the door for like deeper conversations that the game just kind of hints at. The game really trusts you to either go through the game and just do the action part and just kind of like take in what little story is like put right in front of you. Or if you really want to say, hey, how did you get the talisman at the end? What was the purpose behind, you know, you getting that? Or, you know, you want to think about, like we talked about before, the cost of revenge. As, like you said, so many revenge stories are about, you know, what are you sacrificing to get revenge? And is it all worth it? The game really doesn't hammer you with that stuff, but there is depth to what they're giving you if you want to think about it. And like, that's kind of the point of the spoiler section of a lot of these podcasts. So we'll go there for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Other things about the story, I actually don't have a lot of other stuff to talk about the story like right now. There's a lot to discuss in the spoiler section, as we say, but we can talk a little bit about the presentation because you mentioned the environmental storytelling, the way that, you know, if they're not hitting you in the face with direct exposition and things like that, how are you taking in some of these details? So I think this game looks really great. It's got this kind of stylized look. It's not hyper realistic, but it looks really good. And when we say, okay, it's not hyper realistic, that doesn't mean it's not full of details, because the levels that you go through are full of little artistic touches, stuff around, you know, especially the first one, you go through these slum apartments and they're super cluttered. There's a bunch of stuff going on. And stuff that is sometimes story relevant as well. So visually, really awesome looking game.
Yeah, and there's also some really intentional environmental design. In some levels, there's almost like a cycle to them, right? Like you'll see repeating sections almost.
Yeah,
and I think that's deliberate, right? Like the cycle of violence is a narrative story beat, and I think there's just a lot. Not only environmentally, but like the structure of the levels themselves, right? It seems very deliberate, and that's only there. This could be that simple surface level game where it is just a revenge tale and bad guy's bad, good guy good, and you're going through it. You could approach it and play it that way, but it's cool that stuff is included if you're looking for it.
Yeah, 100%. And so maybe some of that like looping, or there are sections of the levels that get into, like you said, that more fantastical visual design where it's like, am I even in a real place right now?
Oh,
like,
yeah, 100%.
There's a bunch of places like that. And that can kind of play into this as well. Like if you want to think about your character's psyche during some of these sections, or, you know, anything like that. Those sections look awesome though. Like there's a part of one of the later levels that's like on fire, and visually that looks like really great. You know, there are... like there's a museum where you're going through these museum exhibits, and like the museum is like super clean, but also, you know, full of details as well.
And I had to think about those art pieces too, like created for this game, I'm assuming, right? If not based on some real art pieces. It's really like incredible the work they were able to do. And even those reality-based environments, they're all a joy to go through, right? They all have like hanging plants, and there's all these like finer details that just, it keeps you very visually engaged throughout.
Yeah, and even if it's not in like the traditional perspective, you know, the game works in like this third person kind of over the shoulder perspective. They play with that too. Like the first level has like a big hallway fight scene that's like straight out of Old Boy. Like stuff like that. The museum has one of those too. So they're, I don't know, like just like the art direction here. I like, not that I didn't expect it, but I like every time I came up, I was like, whoa, this is really, really cool. And then even those parts where they're not doing something crazy, it's still just like a really pleasant, really good looking game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we play games for those moments, right? Like you play games for those wow moments where you see something that you haven't seen before. And this game has it. It does definitely have those moments. Yeah,
absolutely. Also, if we're talking about visuals and presentation, I want to make sure that I shout out the combat animations before we get like, we have a lot to talk about when it comes to the actual combat, like mechanics and stuff. So the animation work in this game is so good. It's so smooth. The way things like one move flows into another move and stuff like that. It's awesome.
Yeah, because the combos are varied, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of almost like freestyling in there.
Mm-hmm.
You could really mix it up between different moves that your character eventually has or unlocks. And yeah, the fact that it's all, also environmentally sensitive, depending on where you are. And it all just kind of flows together seamlessly with weapons, combat, all that. So it's very impressive work for sure.
Yeah. It reminds me, maybe because I've done a bunch of these on the show recently, but it reminds me of the Arkham combat system.
Oh, yeah.
Arkham and Mad Max and stuff like that, where like one move flows into another move, flows into you attacking another enemy, and then someone's coming at you from behind. And like, it's not that these are all, scenarios that are set up for this specific animation to play. It's just all reactive based on where you are, what's next to you, where the enemies are. All that stuff is just really nice.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think, I could see the comparison.
Yeah.
I will say for listeners who maybe haven't played the game, it's far from as simple as the combat in those types of games. It's not like, I push this button to block and like I have
more than pressing 2 buttons. Yeah.
Right. There's a 5-second window where I can push this button to still block the attack. Like this is definitely more precise than that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Another presentation thing, and this was a big surprise to me, even after I finished the game up until today when I was like finalizing these notes for the outline, is I played the game and I made my initial outline and I was like, the music in Sifu is pretty good. I don't remember a whole lot of it. And then I listened to the soundtrack today and I was like, this fucking rocks. Like this soundtrack is so good. Shout out to Howie Lee, who has the music composition credit for this. I think it's probably just because I was so focused on fighting during the actual game itself. But when I went back through and listened to the soundtrack, number one, I remembered almost every track, which never happens. And then I was just sitting there like bobbing my head like, it's an action game soundtrack. So they provide you like a good upbeat kind of like tempo for you to fight to in a lot of cases. Mm-hmm. But this music is awesome.
I love to hear that you had that like turnaround on it because I think way back in the annals of my show, right, we did an episode on video game soundtracks and I shouted this out and I actually caught flack. Like people were like, what, like Sifu? And I was like, no, dude, like you just don't get it because it's also a mix of like traditional instruments mixed in there. And there are like you said, you're very focused, hyper focused on the combat because you have to be. That's what the game like forces you to do. Yeah. But anytime you're not in that combat, you notice the music. There are times where, it's really like thumping and energetic, but there are also times where it's more subtle and quiet. But I always noticed it whenever I wasn't engaged in combat. And yeah, it's beautiful stuff for sure.
Yeah. I specifically note like the music when you go back to your hideout, which will always play right after you just beat a boss. Mm-hmm. Or if you died, in either case, whether you died, like permanently died, or if you beat a boss, you're probably like high adrenaline, like I'm pumped up, my hands are probably shaking because it's a really hard game. Mm-hmm. And then you get back to the music and you just have this like grounding, calm, like melody. It's just a very chill track. So like that's definitely like one of the more pleasant, like just calm down type of tracks. And then there's a lot of music that is upbeat action game type soundtracks. But something I noted when I was listening to it today is that when I say upbeat action game soundtrack, you might think of something that's like in your face, like high tempo, like rock music, like, you know, like the Metal Gear Rising or like Bayonetta soundtracks or something like that. And Sifu's is really different. Like they give you the beat to kind of like fight to, and like it some of it's like almost like club style music. I mean, there is a club level, but a lot of the combat tracks like have a really like thumping, driving beat.
Almost like a 90s techno beat to it, you know?
Yeah, but they don't fill out every possible place in like the soundscape. Like a lot of times they'll just leave the beat and then like a little light, like one other instrument giving you some sort of like background melody or something. But a lot of the times, even in boss fights, it's really reserved. If you just listen to the song, you probably wouldn't guess that it's a boss fight track because it's not, you know, From Software boss tracks up in your face, stuff like that. It's really interesting how they left a lot of, it feels like, you know, open space that they left in the composition. Just, we don't need to fill every single possible sound. We can just kind of give you this backbone of this song.
Yeah, and I think part of that segues into the sound design also. There is some really good meaty sound design in combat.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Everything is communicated really well. So maybe that openness is there because you do almost form a beat when you're in combat, like parries, dodges, blocks. Like there is even, you know, when you connect a hit, there's always like a satisfying and recognizable sound effect that goes with it.
Yeah, and if the music was going like super hard at you, then some of those sound effects would get drowned out. You do need audio cues for some things that are happening in combat. Like maybe there's an enemy behind you that's going to come attack you. A lot of times they'll yell or something like that. Maybe you can even hear them if the music is especially reserved. But yeah, if the soundtrack was just like blasting at top volume with every single possible part of the soundscape filled, you might not appreciate how heavy and crunchy those punches get.
Yeah, definitely.
It's good stuff. And then you made a note here that I totally agree with, that a lot of times as you're going through the level, we'll like use the club as an example.
I think that's the perfect example. I wanted to say that. I wasn't sure if it was off limits, but
no, it's okay. The second level is a club. And so like you go in and there's club music blasting, and like the club music, the rhythm of the combat and everything seems to blend together really, really well, so that, you know, it's not just a background song. It's almost like the soundtrack to your fight in a way that's super cool. Yeah.
And I think the fourth boss fight also kind of has that blend of music and combat that it's just like, oh, it's really, really perfect.
Yeah.
And there's a section in the club where you're walking into I don't think this is a spoiler. You're fighting bad guys, and you're walking towards a room full of bad guys, and there's like these lights that are kind of lighting up to the music, and the DualSense vibrates and makes a sound too. And I have to think that's intentional because it goes perfectly with the music, like the vibration of the DualSense, and creates like an extra level of the beat. And I thought that was a really cool inclusion.
Yeah, it is. It's just a very cool game. Presentation, music. We've already touched on the story a little bit. So far, we're like right. I mean, it's perfect so far. So what we're talking about. So I want to listen to a bit of music here. When we come back, we'll start to talk about the combat. We'll talk about like what makes this game so hard. We'll talk about how to succeed, stuff like that. Sifu's combat is third-person action beat 'em up style. It kind of has like, it reminds me of, you know, old side-scrolling beat 'em ups thrown into like a 3D type thing, but with a lot more complexity. Like you might play some of those older side-scrolling beat 'em ups and be like, well, there's actually like a layer of complexity to this that is not just like punch, punch, kick, you know, grab, move, etc. This has a lot of complexity to it, and it's combo based for the most part. So it's a game that like even in other 3D beat 'em ups like Yakuza games, I love those games. You can get through those games by button mashing and just like, if the enemy's obviously blocking, don't attack them because you'll get countered or something like that. Sifu is not like that at all. You will not succeed at basically any level by just mashing. So combo based, very difficult. Before we get into like how it works, what are your just general thoughts about like the process of learning this?
I agree with what you said at the top of the show that the game doesn't do a great job of teaching you how to play. It doesn't. Yeah. I also had to find supplemental material. It's almost like a requirement, right? If you want to learn how to actually play Sifu successfully, you have to read an article or two or a walkthrough. So I agree with you there, but I think once it was really one mechanic in particular, and I might save it till when we get there, that I think once you learn this one mechanic, it no longer becomes a difficult game. It's then just finding out like where the enemy is striking, whether it's high or low or,
Yeah. So maybe it was a bit of like me coming into the game with a preconceived notion of what this game is. And then also the tutorial that they give you at the beginning of the game emphasizes parrying. So you have a button you can hold to block, and it will block damage, but it will damage your posture. It has a posture bar, like a Sekiro, or so many action games these days are built on posture bars. So blocking will just block, but it will increase your posture. Pressing it at the right time does a parry, which does not harm your posture, and it really hurts the enemy's posture. And then you can also dodge out of the way of attacks by holding the block button and pressing up or down on the control stick. And basically, most attacks can be dodged by pressing down, I want to say, which dodges high attacks, and most attacks are high attacks. Pressing up will have you jump over a low attack. What the game doesn't, I don't think the game teaches you well, because it seems like it de-emphasizes dodging in the tutorial. And the tutorial is like the intro level, and then there's like a training room type thing that you can go into where you can fight enemies. One great thing is after you have finished a boss one time, or maybe even fought them one time, you can train against the bosses, and like you have to repeat levels a lot in Sifu. So like getting dedicated training time against the bosses is super helpful. So like that is a good thing about it. But I played this, I felt like the game was telling me, you got to parry everything, dodge if you have to, but parry everything. And once I read, those supplementary things, and they were like, actually, dodging is great. Parry if you have to, or parry if you're feeling confident, but you can dodge basically everything. That, and like, if you dodge an attack, an enemy will be open for a counterattack that does extra posture damage. Like, it's just like, it's really good. And the game is like, oh yeah, by the way, you can dodge. And then, that's half of the part where I say that this game's not a great teacher, because it sets you up to do the hardest thing, I think, and like make you expect, at least in our experience, makes you expect that that's actually what you have to do. When in reality, you can do that. And eventually, if you want to do the secret stuff, you should get good at that.
You kind of have to do it, yeah.
Yeah, but to finish the game, to beat all the bosses, dodging is like way easier and way, I don't want to say it's better, but it's like, it will help you learn how to play Sifu if you learn to dodge first.
Yeah, it'll give you the confidence to approach the game for sure.
Yeah.
I think that is definitely the bread and butter strategy, is dodging. You could, there's, times with a boss in particular that you can just use one directional dodge against that boss and be successful. Yeah. Like, as long as you get the timing right.
Yeah. I'm glad that they didn't do like dodge left and dodge right in addition to up and down, because that would have been maybe a little bit too much.
You can.
Well, you can, but
you can
functionally,
like sidestep. Yeah.
Like mechanically, it doesn't make a difference. It's just high or low attacks that you're dodging. So you dodge, you parry, you defend however you can, and then you have to attack. And enemies have posture bars, and I think the way you'll take down most enemies is by depleting their posture bar first, and then it will give you a QTE type thing to do these finishing moves. The finishing moves are all context dependent on like where you are, where the enemy is. Is there a couch nearby? You know, is there anything in the environment that you can like slam their head up against? What weapon do you have? There's a lot of these. The animations are fantastic. And so this like always satisfying to pull these off.
Absolutely. This is the blend, right? This is like that perfect moment where it blends the great sound design, the great animation, the good combat. And I love that it is all contextual, like you said. And, you know, if there's a wall up against you, you're going to bash that person's head into a wall. And it is crunchy and meaty and satisfying in every way. And it's also beneficial. Like your character gets a little more life back. There are other positives to doing this. So you really do want to focus on breaking the enemy's posture. But every once in a while, you get an enemy who's feeling froggy, right? And he decides like, no, you're not doing this finishing move on me. And it like buffs that enemy and makes them punch harder and do more damage. And I think that's a cool animation too. You'll go in for like this, you know, double punch head smash, and they'll just like decide they're going to block your second punch and push you away. And then their fists start being flames. And it's like, oh crap. Especially if you're in a room full of enemies, that's when you know you're in trouble.
Yeah, it was maybe like in the last couple hours that I was playing the game where I was finally not like, oh shit, when that happened. But until that point, it's like, it's an emergency when an enemy gets up and like gets that buff. And it's like I think the way it works is like for every finishing move that you actually do on an enemy, the percentage that the next one you do will buff the enemy and do this, that raises up. So eventually it will happen. And then when it happens, that counter resets. So it's an emergency. And like you said, if it happens in a crowd, that's an even bigger emergency, because one of the other big things about Sifu is crowd control. I don't want to say never, but like a lot of the big set piece fights in Sifu are crowds. And so it's not a game where enemies will just like sit back nicely and wait for you to do your one-on-ones. I think the way it works is like there's always two that will be engaged with you no matter what else is going on. But you do have to learn crowd control as a skill.
Yeah, no, you kind of need crowd control as a skill. I like how when you get a little farther in the game, you get varied enemy designs. Like it's not really even that far into the game. You start seeing, they do a good job of introducing this, right? It's almost like a mini boss the first time you run against a different enemy type. And then eventually you're encountering them in rooms full of other enemy types and enemies with weapons. And crowd control is paramount in this game for sure. But I think it steps it up well so that you never feel overwhelmed. Like the first time you run across, for example, like that hallway scene that mirrors Old Boy, you feel as though you're ready for that moment.
Yeah. I mean, I never felt like, you know, I open up a door and there's like 16 enemies in there, and I never felt like, oh no, I don't know what to do here. But it is testing you on like, have you learned skills for crowd control? Like as you play through the game, you can unlock new combos or new, you know, moves to use. Some of them are more useful in crowd control than one-on-one fights. You can do grab moves where you grab an enemy and push them away. And that's just like a purely crowd control tactic. Like, get this guy out of here for 10 seconds. I don't have to deal with him. I can deal with these other people.
Yeah. Some of those moves might not be appealing to unlock immediately, right? Because as you said, it's a push. You're like, okay. Like, what am I going to do with this? But you start to realize the value as the game goes on, for sure.
Yeah. To be honest, I never got really good at like the throws, and like this is one of those games where if you watch someone who's like really good at it, like the skill ceiling's insane in Sifu, and you'll see them really utilize these crowd control moves in a way that I never quite learned how to do. But you do have to like figure out your own way of dealing with a 1 versus 15, you know?
Well, when I heard that you had played through for the real ending, I sent you that clip of like, this is what 2,000 hours of Sifu looks like. And it's insane. It's unreal. But
it's crazy.
I also wasn't very good at the pushes and throws. I feel like anytime there was a directional input, like a back forth, then a button press. It was difficult to execute those moves. It was much simpler just to go like head-on combat and kind of work it into a combo somewhere rather than that straight directional input prior to the button press.
I mean, to be honest, I never got great at like most of the combos because I'm just like not good at comboing in action games. It's also part of the reason why I'm dog shit at fighting games because I'm just like, oh, you want me to do a quarter circle, up A, B? That's not happening. Just straight up not happening. So Sifu is one of those games where like you'll unlock a new skill and it's like, square, square, triangle, square. And like, I might be able to pull that one off. But if it's like you said, like back up, square, square, triangle, that's not happening. So the good thing is that's part of the skill ceiling. If you want to master this game, there is a lot of stuff and all of those things have different utilities and slightly different situations. But I suppose if you want to beat the game, you have to like figure out your own way around these things, but you don't have to master every single combo.
Yeah, that's definitely fair to say. You find what works for you. And I did. Like, I remember my first run, it was just basically like, if I dodge and get the opening, I really only have to hit square. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. That'll work. You'll break postures. Like, you'll be able to do those finishing moves. Yep.
Eventually, the complexity ramps up. So, like, what happened when I was playing is I played the way the tutorial was kind of teaching me to, which was very parry and block based, until I got into the third level. And I couldn't beat the third level using that. Like, not the boss. Like, I couldn't beat the level, let alone the boss. And then that was probably the point where I started to get real mad. It was one of the closest I've been to throwing a controller in a while. Didn't throw it, but close.
Good job. You should be proud of yourself.
Self-control. I'm an adult. That was probably when I sent you the text of like, hey man, maybe we should have a backup game. And then I looked up, those guides and it was like, actually dodging's great. Learn to dodge. And I learned to dodge and I like not flew through, but I got through the rest of the game. And then I incorporated the parries and stuff into my combat strategy. So it was like I beat the first level on like my second or third try. Because one of the other things is the death mechanic, right? So you can fuck up a lot and still beat a level. Because every time you die, your character gets a year older. You start at 20 years old and 70 is the max. So I'm not going to do the math on this, but like you also have a counter. If you die in between big fights, we'll say, it gets added to a counter. So the first time you die, you'll age up 1 year. The next time will be 2 years. The next time will be 3. If you beat a boss, it'll lower it by 1, yada, yada, yada. So like you can beat the first level. You can fuck up a lot, beat the first level at age 60 or something like that. And you're like, cool, I beat the first boss. But then you start the second level at age 60 and you have like no margin for error at all. Right. And so once you hit an age above 70, if you die one more time, you'll have like a game over. And this is the other part that I think the game is not good at teaching you is this is a run-based game with roguelike elements, some meta progression, and the game is like dog shit at teaching you how this works, I think. Like the little descriptors that are like ending a run will erase all progress on this run, but it doesn't. It doesn't. Yeah. So it's like, it's a really bad teacher of like, I want to go back to the hideout. And the game is like, this is going to erase your run. And I'm like, well, I don't want to erase everything. Right. But it doesn't erase everything. It's just not good at explaining.
So yeah, I played this when it was released and I played, a good chunk of 20 hours then and picked it back up when you had invited me on for this episode. And it still worried me. Like that that very notification worried me. I'm like, wait a minute. But all I want to do is replay the hideout. Will I lose all progression? And it needs to be more clear with that for sure. That is something that it's not clear. What it means is you won't be at the club anymore. You'll go back to the hideout, but you could still go back to the club. Like it doesn't really need a message there at all. It just should say, do you want to replay this level?
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely a fear factor in that. But I think, as you said, with the meta progression and the permanent unlocks, there's almost no tutorial on that. You really have to look at the menu, read the screen, and see like how it fills in. It doesn't even tell you like when you purchase an upgrade, hey, if you purchase this upgrade a few more times, it will become a permanent unlock. You have to like visually pick that up by looking at how it's presented in that menu. And that is a poor design choice for sure.
So you have an unlock tree of skills, and as your character gets older, parts of the talisman will break off, and those skills associated with that age range, that decade of life, will become unavailable to purchase. You can still use them, but you can't buy them or upgrade them, which is kind of cool. It makes you strategize like, oh, I'm 39 years old. Is there anything left in this decade that I want to upgrade or want to purchase right now before I die one more time? And I can't anymore. So that's kind of cool. But the way it's presented visually, it's like, permanently unlock this. Okay, cool. I'll pay to permanently unlock this. Why are there 3 more pips to fill on there? And it doesn't teach you that like you actually have to buy it 3 more times to permanently unlock it. If you die and you restart at age 20, it will still be filled in, but you have to buy that skill again to then open up the permanent unlock sequence again. So it's like, it's complicated. You can learn it, but again, the game is bad at teaching you how this works. Like I spent so much time searching on Reddit and GameFAQs for people just be like, how does this work? Mm-hmm. Like, just tell me how this works.
There's like a pinned Reddit thread about it. I know that. Yeah.
Super helpful. So shout out as always to the people on Reddit and GameFAQs for teaching me how to play these games. Also, if you beat a level, it will save the best age that you beat that level at. And the game doesn't teach you how this works. So if, like, let's say you beat the club at age 22, and then you play the club again and you finish it at age 29. It will then save age 29. But if you like kind of reset your run, it will go back to 22. The game doesn't teach you that. So you have to figure all this stuff out, because part of the game is like, you beat the levels once just to beat them, but then you have to get to a point where you can beat the last level, beat the final boss who's really difficult at an age that will give you enough like breathing room, enough buffer to actually do it before you get a game over. Like, you have to understand these things to strategize. How am I going to build out the best run with the best abilities, the lowest ages, so that I get to that last level and I have enough life left, literally, to like do this successfully? And the game's just really bad at teaching you how to strategize for those things.
Yeah. And a part of me found it appealing that I had to figure that out on my own. It wasn't appealing that I had to read about how it worked, but I liked that I had to figure out the progression in a way that, okay, I decided, right? When I get to level 2, I'm going to go back and replay 1 till I beat it without dying.
Right.
And that was my decision to approach it that way. So I like that it's open to approach however you choose. I think from there, I went through levels 2 and 3 before I was like, oh, I should go back and try to get through level 2 at like my youngest possible age, right?
Yeah.
Because then I kind of hit a wall at level 4, but there is that freedom to play through the game as you choose. If you want to just keep pushing, like, you could get through level 1 at 60 and then just go back, replay it once and get through level 2 at 70 or whatever it might be. But I do like that, everybody's going to choose to approach that differently. And the developer did leave that available, that option there for whoever picks the game up. But it should have definitely been explained better. But how do you even explain that, right? Like, that's something I don't envy the task they would have, right? But they just decided they weren't going to do it.
Yeah. I like that you're like, okay, I just beat level 3. I'm 65 years old. I'm not going to be able to beat level 4. So I need to go back and replay the earlier levels. And like, it might sound grindy or tedious to go back and replay that stuff. To me, that was awesome, because if I beat level 3, I'm going to destroy everyone in level 1. Like, I'm just so much better at to beat level 3. You have to be so much better than you were in level 1. Yeah. So I'm going to go back. It's going to be like a power fantasy going back and doing level 1 again.
It was satisfying, because like level 3, you'll encounter a room with 20 people and 10 of them have weapons. and some of them are like beefy enemies, right? You go back to level 1 and you don't encounter any of that. You maybe encounter a room with one beefy enemy, and then that's like the worst you got, or like 10 enemies at once. And it's very satisfying to go back where you once struggled and just run through it.
It's great. So then the issue is, like, in the menu where you pick your level, if I go back and pick level 1, it will give you some kind of warning about, like, you know, you'll lose progression past this level. And I'm like, what does that mean? And so I don't think that I should need to go on Reddit for, you know, it's one thing if I'm playing a game from 1993 when game manuals were a thing, and it's like, I don't have the manual, so I need to go find information about how to play the game online. For a game that came out in 2022, I should not have to go on Reddit to learn how, like, key systems work in the game. That's kind of my thing. Eventually we got there, and it turned into a really satisfying, like, I know I can do this better. Maybe I got through this level losing, 9 years of life. I know I can do better. I'm going to play that level one more time and do better. And eventually, like, spoilers for our conversation we'll talk about later, I needed all those extra years to beat the final boss.
Yeah, you do have fun going back. You shouldn't have to look it up online. You're absolutely right. And like that is not a fun experience. Like, oh, I'm in this game, I'm feeling it, like everything's singing, it's great. And then you're like, hold on, I got to put the controller down to go on my phone for 20 minutes while I read this article. Yeah, it's not the best feeling, but you do end up with a good product, but not a good delivery of that product, for sure.
So, like, we've talked about the combat, fighting mechanics and, like, the combos and stuff like that. When we're talking about gameplay also, one of the other things that you need to do as you one of your main goals is to lay out this optimal route with optimal upgrades, optimal meta progression, so that you get to the last level in the best state, the lowest age, the best abilities that you can have to get there. And part of that process is figuring out the best route through the levels as well. The levels all have these jade statues in them that will give you a perk, we'll say, as you go through. And you can do a maximum of 3 per level. And some of them have stipulations, like there's a score. You get a score as you fight. So you have to have a certain score to do certain upgrades. You need to be below a certain age to use certain upgrades. But the levels are built with a bunch of shortcuts. So you might find a way that will, like, take you directly to the boss, but then you'll miss out on those jade statue upgrades. But maybe you don't want to go through the whole level like you did the first time. Then the levels are built with this intricate, like, layer of shortcuts and unlockable doors and stuff like that, so that you can kind of say, okay, I'm going to go back to the club. What's the route that I want to take through the club this time? Maybe the last time, there's these really hard enemies, I never want to fight them again. So I want to take a different route through this time. And the level design is so intricate and cool that it allows you to do that. So, like, I don't want to get out of gameplay without praising the level design as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe that's the developer's way of getting you to go back and play these levels. Like, maybe they thought we were smarter than we actually are. I don't know. Maybe they gave us too much credit here. And they're like, here, we'll give you a key for the prior level. And that'll be that'll be the light bulb moment. But there is a lot of that, there is a lot of those shortcuts. And I personally found myself, initially taking them, right, to hurry up, get to that boss fight and get through the level at the youngest possible age. But yeah, you do start realizing, oh, I'm missing out on, like, the health buffs and the posture buffs and things that you could get from these jade statues. So eventually it was like, no, I'm taking everybody out. Like, that's it. And you eventually have to get good enough to do that, I think, to beat the game. Like, that is one kind of thing I want to make clear to people who are considering playing this, is like, you do have to be ready to replay these levels and ready to, like, really replay the entirety of the game to be young enough to take on some of these bosses.
Right. Because there's only 5 levels, and, running through a level might take 15, 30 minutes, something like that. And then I played this game for 16 hours. So a lot of it was playing the same levels over and over again. But again, I never got tired of it because I'm always, trying to find optimal routes, trying to find the best sequence of jade statues. But the main thing is, once this game clicked, I never got tired of fighting. Like, I never got tired of fighting in this game. No matter how many times I fought the same group of enemies, I think there's a mastery over the combat mechanics, but also the kind of reactivity and context-based, like, I'm fighting this group of enemies in a restaurant. So, like, I'm going to go fight them in the kitchen this time, and there's going to be a bunch of context-dependent things that happen if I fight enemies in the kitchen. Yeah. And I think that adds, like, maybe that little extra variety that will make it so that I'm not mad that I'm fighting the same group for like the 20th time.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you ever play Absolver?
I didn't, no. That was their game before this, right?
It was their game before this, and I did kind of want to play it because I've heard, maybe it's the combat's a little similar to Sifu. Like, you could see the inspiration, right? But I still haven't gone back and played it. So I was curious if you had, because I guess perhaps you wouldn't have these roadblocks if you had played Absolver, but I couldn't speak from experience.
Perhaps. And now they're making a soccer game. So
wow.
Yeah. And like it looked like it was like from the same perspective that you fight in Sifu and everything. So I wonder if it's like the same game engine, but you're playing soccer this time. Like, I don't know if I would buy a soccer game from just anyone, but like the way Sifu works, I'm really curious about how that soccer game is going to play.
I'd have to see more. I'm not like the biggest soccer guy, but it really just depends. If it wasn't just a sim, I'd be interested. Yeah. I would have faith in the developer for that.
Yeah, for sure. So overall, the path in the gameplay from beginning to end was bumpy, we'll say. There's just a couple of ways that I think this game could teach you how to play better and explain how systems work better. But whether you intuit that by yourself or whether you seek out those people on GameFAQs or on Reddit to actually teach you how these things work, I ended up, once again, I just want to reiterate, I ended up like absolutely loving this, playing it to the point where like my hands got so tired I couldn't press the buttons anymore at certain points because I was just having so much fun. And like that mastery over this is not something that I always seek out. Like, I'm not always playing the most difficult games, and the difficulty and reputation might have put me off of playing this for a while. But once I was actually forced to pick it up and play it, and then, I always had that thing, even when I was thinking about stopping playing it, I always had that thing nagging at me that like, no, you can do this. Like, people beat this game, you can do this. So like, figure out, check a tutorial online, figure out how to play it. And then, I absolutely devoured like the last 5 hours or so that I played this. I probably did it all in one day. It was like one of those games.
Nice. Yeah. I think that was my response to you when you were like, I'm thinking we might have to have like, I don't know if I could do this. And I was like, you can do it, Dave. Like, you got this, man.
I appreciate you. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, man. No, I appreciate you. It's funny because this came out after Returnal, and it was another one of those games where the difficulty it's rough at points, but I pushed. It's just the game just made me want to play more. I couldn't put it down, right? It compelled me to play more, and I'm happy I did. That is one of my favorite gaming experiences of this generation, and Sifu grabbed me in a similar way that I just didn't want to put it down. Like, it had everything. It had the visual appeal and, the environmental storytelling. It was everything I like in a game in a tight, like, well-organized package. And once you figure out how the game wants you to play it, it was beauty in motion, man. I love this game. I really do.
Yeah, it was great. And it should be noted also, I think this game does have difficulty options. It has at least one option where you can drop the difficulty down. So if you don't want to deal with it, or if you can't, you can put this on an easier mode. I want to say there's like some kind of sliders going on here, but it does have a lower difficulty if you just want to get through, see the story and stuff like that. Or, it might still be somewhat of a challenge, but it's not going to like grind your face in the dirt.
Yeah, I only played on. I didn't even know there was a difficulty option.
May have been added later, I think. As sometimes that happens where one of these action games will come out and a bunch of people are like, I can't play this. And the developers are like, oh, we'll put in
Happened with Returnal.
something easier. Yeah.
Returnal, they're like, hey, well, okay, fine. We'll do save states.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll let you save the game. Yeah. Very nice of them. Let's get into our kind of final thoughts, our wrap up section here about Sifu. So I think we summed up our thoughts there right before that break, but can you recommend this to a specific group of people?
You have to be willing to embrace the grind. I think that is a group of people this game would appeal to. The rewards are there, but if you're a person who likes pushing through challenges in video games to reap rewards, this game's for you. And if you're just a fan of kung fu movies or revenge tales, I think there's enough there to keep you engaged. I could definitely 100% recommend it to them. If you're more of a casual gamer, it wouldn't be the first game I'd recommend to you. I'll say that much. But
yeah, that said, it does have the lower difficulty. So I didn't try it, so I don't actually know how hard or easy it is, but it is there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's a great game. And if you appreciate a well organized package of a video game, like a really, like, I hate to reuse tight experience, but it doesn't waste a lot of game. Like there's not,
right.
Like you said, there's just not a lot of exposition. Everything's deliberate. Like there's things there to keep you engaged throughout, like the combat, the visuals, all of it. It's a really extremely well put together game in almost every aspect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is focused. There's only 5 levels, and like the levels are big. There's lots of paths through the levels, but there's only 5. So like they never spread themselves out too thin in any way. And so like within that, then you have these really cool visual moments, presentation moments. The music's great. You have memorable encounters. We'll talk about the boss fights in the spoiler section, but those are all memorable. And again, there's only 5 of them. So it's not like they're building out a roster of bosses where there's just going to be some trash in there because, they needed a boss at the end of this hallway. Like it's really, I think it's commendable that they didn't spread this out too thin and they built this around this kind of looping mastery over each level, mastery over each boss. And you do have to be up for that for sure. Like, especially
when we get a lot of games in this specific generation that have a lot of padding, right? Or they're open world and there's a lot of like roaming and it's nice. It's a breath of fresh air to have a game like this.
Yeah. Yeah. It will require a lot of repetition, but I already said that repetition was super fun and satisfying for me because it meant mastering those places. It meant strategizing like the best routes through the levels, trying to get the most upgrades while getting out of the level at the lowest age that I could. Like that stuff's great. I love making a plan and then having to like follow through and execute it really well. So this ended up just being awesome. And, not a recommendation for literally everybody, but the difference in where I was when I sent you that kind of like that text of like, hey, I don't know if I can do this, to where I was when I finished the game. It's like it's a huge turnaround. So I think that a lot of people may have a similar experience, but it is worth sticking with it.
Very cool.
So before we get to spoilers, as we always do, we will do a bit of housekeeping, a bit of plugs, and this always starts with the guest. And if you've been listening to Tales from the Backlog for a long time, you've already been introduced to Ryan. But in case you're new, Ryan, please tell the people about Listoff and where they can find you.
Sure. I'm Ryan from Listoff Podcast. You may have heard me on Listoff Podcast. No, you can find Listoff Podcast on any podcast streaming platform. We're also on social media on Instagram, Blue Sky, all your favorites. I would hope you go and give us a listen. If you want a good episode to start with our favorite Metroidvanias, which starred none other than Dave Jackson from Tales from the Backlog.
Yeah.
And we used to do a lot of list episodes, and then we had a while where we were covering more contemporary gaming news, but we are back to doing list episodes in 2025. So we hope you tune in. Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I rekindled my passion for lists. I started brainstorming ideas and like had enough that I was like, I think we could do this again, you know?
Love to hear it. Yeah. It's good to have you guys back doing the bread and butter, doing the lists. Also on the show, Brian, great guy. So
he's all right. No, I love that dude.
Yeah, you can say it. Brian's great. So if people are into lists, you look no further than the show named after it, List Off. And like Ryan said, I was on the show. We did top Metroidvanias, and looking forward to the next one. And Ryan's been on this show several times too, as I listed those episodes at the top of the show. And I wouldn't keep inviting Ryan back if he didn't do good work of his own. So, yeah, please go check List Off out. You'll see links down in the show notes where you can easily find them. And while I'm talking about myself for the next minute or so, you can go do that. So ways to support this show are the same as always. You can join the Discord server, come in and chat, especially Sifu's a fun one to talk about our experiences with boss fights, with levels, and, come in, tell us how old you were when you finally beat Sifu. So the Discord server is a great place. You can also leave ratings and reviews. If you're listening to the podcast, you can like, subscribe, comment on YouTube. All of those things will help people find the show, and that's what we want to happen. You can listen to my own list podcast. It's called a Top 3 podcast, where we do top 3 lists. We draft topics, all kinds of fun stuff like that. And finally, last but not least, I mentioned this game is on the show because it won a poll on Patreon, and you can support at patreon.com/realdavejackson. Everybody who supports there gets to vote in the monthly polls. So you'll have a say in what games come on the show, just like Sifu here. So that is a lot. We're going to take a break. I'm going to catch my breath. Enjoy the music from Sifu. When we come back, it will be full spoiler time. All right, thanks for sticking around during the spoiler break. I'd like to do a few announcements about some guest appearances on podcasts that I did, and then the customary thank yous. So, 2 guest appearances to shout out. First of all, Ryan, the guest on this episode, one of the hosts of List Off Podcast, had me on List Off Podcast. So if you're listening to this on release day, that episode comes out tomorrow. And if you're listening anytime after that, you can go find it. Over on List Off Podcast, we talked about our top 5 solo developed games. So it was a fun conversation, some great lists and some great games. So please go check that episode out over on List Off. Also, I was on the Gamerheads podcast for a brand new game show that Roger set up. Think of it as Around the Horn, the long-running ESPN show Around the Horn, but for video game news. And I had a great time on that show with some fun contestants and Roger as the host as always, so please go check that out. That is Gamerheads Podcast. I'll put links down in the show notes to both of those. And as always, I'd like to say thank you to the patrons who help support the show. Big thank you to Chris Nelson, the Top 3 Podcast crew, Zulgeek, Chris Copleen, Eric Guess, Rick Firestone, Nick Fakori, Jill, Soccer, Cupcake, Kyle, Christian S., Matt aka Stormageddon, JD, Doug Leaf, Jason Emery, Brian Skirsha, Jenny E., Marcus O'Neill, Stefan, Drellish, Rob Smith, Rigamort, Sil Canet, Ashton Ruby, Levi, Offshore Meteor, and a new patron, Luisa. Thank you very much. And thanks to everybody who supports. Much love to everybody. Thank you for the support. If anyone would like to be like them and join us over on patreon.com/realdavejackson, that would be much appreciated. And with all that being said, let's get back to full spoilers for Sifu. All right, we're back, and it's full spoiler time for Sifu. We're going to start out, first of all, we always say this, we're not going to walk through the levels in a linear fashion. We're not going to talk about the story in a linear fashion. We may spoil things. We might talk about the final boss fight in 30 seconds. So if you haven't played and you don't want to be spoiled, please leave, play the game. We will be here waiting for you. exactly in the same poses we're in right now. We'll be waiting. Frozen. So there's that. We're going to start out by just talking about our favorite boss fights, or maybe boss fights that gave us the most trouble. Now, there's only 5 of them, but aside from the first fight, who I forget his name. I should have written the name down.
Fajar.
Yeah. The one who kills you when you're a kid. Aside from him, I beat him my first try, maybe like age 50 or something, but I beat him my first try. All the other ones had their own version of kicking my ass for a while until I finally beat them. Were there any that stuck out to you?
I think like Kuroki has to be the one that stands out to me. That's like the first hard roadblock because it isn't easy to dodge. Not as easy as the prior bosses, but also the visual design of her fight and her level just are. It's one of the best moments in the game, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. The snow, and then the second phase where you're in like that black kind of ocean.
Mm-hmm.
That shit's
with the
crazy.
Rain coming down. It's wild. Like the game just takes such a turn there. It is.
The museum too. The museum is one of the places where it started to go into, because the slums are, there's like no fantasy really in the slums. Right. It's just fighting. And then the club, like it's on fire later. And like, that's probably not really how things are, but, the museum starts to get into this really abstract, like, spaces, like the way they frame it as an art exhibit, and you're going through these like really like the way they use color in those like those basement parts of the museum, those are crazy. But yeah, then you get to her fight and you fight her in the snow first. She's really hard because that's the first boss where you have to dodge low attacks really well, because she does those like spinning things with her whatever that weapon is that she's using in the first phase. And it's like,
wish I could tell you.
I had to get in the training mode and practice like down, down, up, down, like what direction I'm dodging.
Yeah, there's a good variety in that for sure. But even the lead in right before her fight, where you walk out into the middle of the museum and not on a platform and almost enter a piece of art. And then everything in there is just like color and contrast and oh man, it's just like, wow, that's when I knew this game was something special, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
But she was trouble. She was a good boss fight. I don't feel like it was unfair at any time. But I feel like it was like, oh, I now I have to learn, right? Like now I have to get better at this.
Yeah. And the second phase, I didn't know you could catch weapons that were thrown at you. Maybe it's a skill you have to unlock.
It is a
skill.
Yeah.
I think I unlocked it and then just like forgot, hey, this sounds useful, and then never used it because people don't throw stuff at you that often. But she has that attack where she throws the kunai at you and you have to catch it. So that taught me to use that. This was, I want to say this is the first level or the first boss where I started to really think about the story. And what really made me think about it is all the bosses, because like you hit the last like death blow thing on them and a cutscene plays out, a short little cutscene of you striking the killing blow. And they all look, they have this moment of like really intense fear in their eyes right before you kill them. The first boss does it. Sean, the second boss, like a little bit less so.
He like puts his hand up though, right? Like
yeah. And then Kuroki is, because she's wearing the really intense eye makeup. So when her eyes get wide, when she realizes you're about to kill her, or she realizes that you've stabbed her through the heart, I was like, oh shit, like, okay, so these people are all like legitimately afraid of you and like what's happening here. So that was the one that really started to make me think about, the nature of this revenge story.
Yeah, there's also moments in that level where they're saying she turned away from that life. She even says like she turned away from it at one point and like isn't pursuing it anymore. And your character says to one of her henchmen, right? You kind of run into like this bodyguard of her and you say like, I just want to talk to her. So there is a moment of like, oh, are you going to let her go because she's no longer living a life of evil? Because the two prior to her are, I mean, Sean, it's less obvious, but like, Fajar is like obviously creating a drug, right? For people in the slums.
Yeah.
But for Sean, it's like, okay, is he like just a club owner? Like, what's that guy really doing? I mean, he's training people in a brutal way. That's conveyed, but which could be construed as evil. But really, with Kuroki, it's the first time you see somebody who chose a different path right after what happened.
I thought she was still doing something shady, like laundering money or something through the museum. But like, you know, does someone need to die because they're laundering money? I don't know. But I didn't talk about it. I should have talked about like the facial animations, because like that, the way that her eyes got really wide with fear, I was like, oh, this is okay. So and that made me think about these bosses as people. And then you start to pick up more and more pickups, explaining kind of their stories. Like, I think there was something going, like Fajar had some kind of a condition that Yang was like helping with, but you don't learn about that till you get to the last level, which is the clinic. And he has a room in like his own dedicated room in there. And so you don't know anything about like them as people until you've killed them like 5 times, you know?
Right. That's true. No, that's a good point. But it definitely alludes, especially by the time you make it to the clinic, that like you might not be making the wisest choices on this quest for revenge.
Right. Yang is helping people in a way. He's helping more people than you're helping. We'll say, like, is he evil? Perhaps, but or more specifically, has he done evil things in his past? Yeah, he has. And those have some motivations explained too. But when you get there, he's running a clinic, he's helping people. And there was something you pick up that kind of hints that like the clinic is not on the up and up, but like they are legitimately helping some people too.
Yeah, and I think even Jin Fang, right? Like, didn't it allude to her having a lot of like philanthropic causes and things like that in her level? But so I think I do like that there's that approach. I don't think it's as simple as anybody being black and white, even for the character you're playing as. Like, you are doing violent things in a violent way, like
right.
And you're only really concerned with your own selfish goals. So I don't think it's fair to say there's a good and bad on either side, right? But there is a choice there, and you made that choice, Dave.
Yeah. So I guess real quick, before we get too far into the story, my first real boss wall was Sean. Sean was the first boss that I couldn't beat. Not that I could like beat at age 60. I just could not beat Sean for a while. And I think I got like kind of lucky when I beat him. And then I got it. This is what it was. So I beat Sean at like a really high age, got into the museum, could not get through the museum. And that put me on the path to like looking up external sources for how to be good at the game. And then, you know, later on when I'm doing the pacifist route, pacifist in air quotes, we'll talk about that. I like Sean didn't touch me like the last time I fought him. It was like complete mastery over that. I never got to that point with any of the other bosses, but maybe because I fought Sean so many times the first time.
He was your true enemy.
Yeah.
Did you like stand up and yell at the TV? Were you like, yeah, Sean?
Dude, I might have done some fuck yeahs after I beat some of these bosses.
Nice.
So Kuroki was really hard, but a good challenge. Jin Fang, I knew about the like going into the training dummy thing, so I like trained up a bunch before I fought her the second time, we'll say. So I never found her that hard. There's just a couple of attacks that like caught me by surprise every now and then. Visually, hers is crazy because you're like, you start that level in like a skyscraper, and then you just keep going down and down and down. And suddenly you're like hundreds of stories below the surface of the earth. Yeah. So like the arena where you fight her is even more surreal. It's like, you know, this place can't even exist.
And then you keep falling from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is wild. But I actually think I beat Jin Fang on my first time fighting her, which I was like, oh, I wrongfully convinced myself that I got this. Like, oh, this game is, I've reached the point where I am like a master of Sifu. And then you run into the final level in Yang, and it's like, okay.
The final level was not bad for me. I got to Yang with a good, like in a good state. but he's just really fucking hard.
Yeah.
And one of the things I didn't like about the Yang fight is you can't use your like, I forget what they call like focus attacks or whatever those are called. Because I was really relying on those in tight spots. And then you get to the final boss and they're like, nah, you can't do that against him.
Was there a focus attack that you found the most useful?
There's one that trips the enemies that I thought was useful just to buy myself a couple of seconds to like think. There's that one. And then I think there was one where you jam your fingers in their eyes or something like that. Yeah,
for sure.
It's the Bobby Boucher.
Right.
Yeah. And I use that in boss fights to like open them up for a counterattack and get some cheap damage.
Yeah. Those were the two I found the most useful as well. I like that when you trip them, you could like hold O to get in those ground shots and pick them back up. And sometimes you could even get a few more shots in when you pick them back up. So that was like almost a cheat. And then Yang's just like, no, not today, buddy. Yeah.
So you have to really learn that fight. And so I got to the last level at like age 25 or something like that. And then I beat him. I was in my 40s for the bad ending, which I thought was like not, I thought that was pretty good.
That's
because that boss is really hard.
Yeah.
Do you remember how old your character was?
I definitely got to the final level in my 20s, probably about mid 20s. But I think I was probably in my 50s by the time I beat Yang. He was just so brutal. And it wasn't, it took multiple playthroughs. Like I got to the final level in my 20s and then I was able to keep playing him in my 20s. Right.
Right.
And it definitely wasn't my first time like encountering him that I got through in my 50s. Like I fell a victim to him many times.
Yeah, it's really tough. And so if anyone's listening wherever they're listening, if anyone's listening and hasn't played the game, what happens if you kill all of the bosses is you go into this weird kind of like, I don't know, it's like a dream or something like that, where you are told that you have not mastered the way of Wuda, which is, it's like martial arts morality or something like that. It's like a loose translation. So you're sent back and you're trapped in this cycle of violence and revenge. And I think it's kind of, I wouldn't have figured this out on my own, but it is kind of cool to think about the way that you kind of break out of this. Because during the boss fights, you're so conditioned during fights. As soon as you see that thing pop up to do the takedown attack, you hammer those buttons. But in the boss fights, if you break their posture, the kill thing comes up and you just don't do anything, they'll get back up. And then you have to break their posture one more time, and then the kill thing will pop up again, but you'll have another button that says spare, and you can spare all of the bosses. So that's the way that you get the real ending, is you spare all 5 of the bosses. And in order to lower their posture without depleting their health, you have to learn how to parry. So that was when I had to learn how to do it. But by that point, I knew their attacks because I learned how to dodge them. So then learning, like just replacing the dodge input with the parry input was not, I mean, it was still hard, but it wasn't as hard. So did you attempt?
Yeah, I attempted. There was an attempt made. Okay. It wasn't a very good one. I did get Fajar and I got Sean, and then I was like, yeah, no, I can't make it farther than this, and I am not going to keep trying.
In your defense, I did this all within the span of like 2 weeks, and you took years in between, the first time and then when I asked you to revisit this for the podcast. So
yeah, I'll take full advantage of that out and say, yeah, no, you're right. Like,
no, you got to get the muscle memory back to do the hardest thing that the game can offer you. So I beat I beat Yang with like sparing him with my character in his 60s. So I almost didn't get it. If I died one more time, the death counter would have pushed me too high. So I guess 2 more deaths would have been it. So I beat the game. Bad ending in my 40s. You said you beat maybe in your 40s, 50s, something like that. And then I beat it with the true ending in my 60s. After the true ending, your character kind of like walks up on this mountain peak, You see a dragon flying out in the distance. It's a kind of cool cutscene, but it's a very quiet cutscene. It's not a celebration because, and I think they want you to really focus on how old your character looks when you get to the end of the game.
It's like a close-up on him.
Yeah. And so focusing in back on that story thing we talked about earlier, the death mechanic is not just a gameplay mechanic that changes your stats or makes certain skills unavailable to you. It is like a visual and like a very in-your-face representation of how your character has basically wasted their life on the path for revenge. And then it makes you wonder, is it worth it for your character to get the revenge? But they have lost, in my case, they went from age 20 to age 60 something. You know, a lot of people would consider those to be the best years of their life.
I think most people.
Yeah, to just get the revenge. And then the game leaves you with this, you know, this cutscene. You've started your own martial arts school. You're now the Sifu. But like it's like those years would have gone by in a flash. Like it made me think about other revenge stories about, you know, I think about John Wick or something like that. John Wick reconnects with friends along the way. And like John Wick has life experiences through these movies. He kills a lot of people and he spends a lot of time on the run, but like he has life experience. He gets a new dog and all this other stuff. Like your character gets none of that. It's like your life just flashes forward.
Yeah. Yeah, there is no companion or friend or anybody. No. You're doing this by yourself. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And maybe that's them saying, play it again, Dave. Try to achieve Wuda at age
22.
Yeah, exactly.
So your character has their whole life ahead of them now.
How could you let the protagonist live that way, Dave?
I mean, there are people who do, you know, they beat Sifu, they get the real ending at age 20, and my hat goes off to them.
Yeah, that's not me. That's not me.
That's not me. I think this is the way that they intend this story to go too, because for you to question whether it was worth it for your character to use 40 plus years of their life on the path for revenge. And then you get to the end and they don't ask you, but you definitely have the question, all right, was it worth it?
Yeah. And I think that's why this is good, right? Like there are revenge tales out there that don't have that kind of bittersweet question involved, right? Like I think of Kill Bill. It is a celebration of revenge, right? Like that is very much like at the end of that movie, you're supposed to feel great that she killed all those people and not think about it in a deeper way at all, that, you know, that there would be remorse there or anything like that. And I think in some ways John Wick is that too, right? Like there's not that. You're rooting for John Wick to kill all these guys and they are just bad guys, right? There's not like a depth there.
Especially in the first one. Like, well, it starts to get out of control once you get in John Wick like 3 and 4, but the first one is definitely like, oh, these guys, like they killed his dog.
They killed his dog.
Yeah, so like they have to go. So you're rooting for that for sure.
Yeah. And I appreciate that this kind of took that and it's like you said, it's baked into the game mechanic, right? It's just, it was right there for the taking and the developers didn't squander it. Like they came up with this mechanic that you're going to age as you die and you're going to be left with this question at the end of the game. And I think that's hats off to them for
that mechanic tells the story for them. Like they didn't have to put anything else in there. You get that close up look of your character when you're supposed to be like, yeah, fuck yeah, I beat Yang. And then you get that look at your character and you're like, because sometimes I wonder in revenge stories, like what happens after it's over? Like, are they satisfied? Do they go on and live their life? And are they happy now that they got through this? Like John Wick doesn't get the chance to live his life, but like Inigo Montoya, is he happy with his life after he kills the 6-fingered man? Like, you get to ask those questions.
Does he just go off with Fezzik and like they do fun stuff for the rest of their days?
I hope so. But in this case, in Sifu, like I was looking at my character and be like, oh, my character is old. So he has this new martial arts school. So maybe he'll feel fulfilled by that. But you get the feeling that like it wasn't getting revenge, because you don't open up a martial arts school if you get the bad ending. So it wasn't like getting revenge that makes him happy. It's like understanding the way of Wuda that allows him to, be able to move on and do some, put some good out into the world after killing so many people.
Right, right. And the whole point of this, like, Wuda is him finding peace, right? Because the voice you hear in that dream sequence is your father's. It's Sifu's, right? So I think there's definitely deeper meaning there, and there's like a reconciliation for the character, right? To do justice by their deceased father, right?
Yeah.
But I still think they're probably sitting there at their dojo at night just going like, man, I wasted 40 years on this.
Yeah.
You know, like there still has to be that thought that pops in their head, right?
They're thinking, man, I should have just done the club one more time.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah. And I think that it wants you to be left with that bittersweet type of ending, which is really good. And Kill Bill's kind of a special case. It's a special kind of story and storytelling where, like, you know, you celebrate the revenge and making the guy's heart explode. But this is a different type of story. So I like the way that they did it. And I like the way that as you go through, and even especially as if you're working towards that final ending, the good ending, it means you're playing the game a lot. You probably fought the bosses a lot. You probably unlocked a bunch of the collectibles, and you've realized that the people that you're killing, the bosses, are nuanced. Like, they might be evil. I forgot the guy's Fajar. I keep wanting to say Jafar. It's Fajar. He kills a child. So like, that's an evil act.
Totally.
But he's indebted to Yang because Yang's helping him with his illness. So like, there's a little bit of nuance to that. Same with the other characters. And then Yang at the end, when you realize why he betrayed your father in the first place, is because your father held up this like, tradition is more important than saving the people that are important to you. He could have used the talisman to save his wife, and I think it was his wife and child. There's two graves, one large and one small. So he could have used that power, but the Sifu was so steeped in tradition, unwilling to bend to help. You know, you think he must have loved Yang at some point. He must have wanted to help him.
Absolutely.
But he would not go that far to help him. And that broke Yang. So like, you can see why Yang was like, all right, well, you're hoarding this. This can be used for good. The power of this talisman can be used for good. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to try and use it for good. So like, you get a little bit of depth to the characters. They're not all just these psychos that you have to go take out for the betterment of the world, you know?
Right. Like, arguably, they were the ones who wanted to take this power and use it for good, right?
Yeah.
Also for selfish, but for good. Like, it's your wife and kid. Like, you would do anything to save them, right?
Right. Yeah. So there's that depth to them. And so that kind of like makes me wonder why at the beginning, why wouldn't Yang just take the talisman? Why did he give it to you as you were laying there dying on the ground? He could have taken it. He could have used it for whatever he wanted, but his plan changed right then. Why?
Okay. So there's a few things going on here, right?
Yeah.
If you watch when Fajar deals the killing blow, two of the henchmen look away when he's doing it. So there is like dissension in their ranks, right? Like there's at least dissenting opinions on whether or not they should be killing a child. So maybe while you were sleeping, while you were dead, there was a conversation about like, dude, what the heck? Like, we can't be killing kids. Like, we have to draw the line somewhere, right? If we're really trying to help people, this isn't helping people. But I also think, you know, Yang had a wife and a kid and he lost them.
Yeah.
So maybe he saw something in you that reminded him of his kid, or maybe he just didn't want to see another child die, right? I do think it stems from a remorse.
Yeah, a change of heart after the evil act is already done. Yeah. Because like Yang grew up in the martial arts school with you, with the Sifu, like everybody knows each other. So it could have been a change of heart after it was over. It could have been like, you know, a show of force for his deputies, his clan. And then after the fact, he goes back and sneaks the talisman to you or something like that.
Oh, true.
I had thought about this as like, maybe Yang did this because he realized that there was a cycle I mean, he creates a new cycle by bringing you back to life, but
Right.
maybe he wanted to give you a second chance. And maybe you would be able to put more good into the world than he was doing or something like that. They definitely characterize him in a way where even after he kills the Sifu, and like through the years after that, when you have that talk with him before the boss fight, he's not characterized as a psycho. He's characterized as someone who kind of like sees kind of the realities of the world, and you're there because he wanted you to be there. He wanted to bring you back.
Right. No, it's a very interesting character too. He doesn't exactly seem like proud of what he did in killing your father either, right? He never like gloats about it or like, oh yeah, the old man deserved it. Like you're not going to get that sort of satisfaction out of him.
Yeah, he taunts you in like one of the sections. Like it might be like the second phase of the boss fight where it's like, all right, we're fucking fighting. Then like, all right, you're going to die just like your father died.
Yeah.
But in that kind of exchange before you start fighting, you're right. I don't think he's like proud of what he did.
Yeah. I mean, he calls you family at one point, right? Like,
yeah.
So
I don't know. Did you watch the true ending thing?
I did. Yeah, no, I did. Yeah. I watched like the animation for sparing each boss and all that. Yeah.
So you know how after you beat the second phase and spare him, there's a third phase that begins where you have to fight him. I cannot tell you how nervous and like how I got a pit in my stomach when I saw there was a third phase, because I beat the second phase with like no margin for error left. You can't lose in that third phase, but you do have to parry a lot. You have to break his posture again. So that means parrying a lot and fighting back. And my hands were so tired, I physically could not parry anymore. So I had to pause the game and just like, take a break and then come back and do that.
Love that.
It was so hard. And like the panic I got when I was like, oh, there's a third phase. No. I don't want to do the second phase again because it's so difficult.
Oh, that second phase is horrendous, dude.
It's so hard. But yeah. So that third phase, luckily I want to say they play tested that and they're like, hey, people are tired, Yeah. You're gonna get people carpal tunnel here. Like let's let them just do it. Get to the ending.
I like that you paused. You probably like if you can't lose, you didn't have to. You could have just let the protagonist get smacked around for like 5 minutes straight.
Yeah. Set it down. Take my dog for a walk. He's just getting the shit beat out of him for like 45 minutes.
Just taunted and yelled at and everything else, right?
Yeah. So the path for revenge, the cycle's been broken, we'll say. When you spare all the bosses, you've achieved enlightenment, Wuda, you've moved on. Does it like I like this. I liked the kind of like change of heart that I had once I realized you can spare the bosses, and once I realized what the bosses are about and kind of the nuances of the story, I was on board with sparing them. Even the guy who killed your character as a kid. So I liked the way that kind of progresses and the way your mindset kind of changes as you play. You still kill hundreds of people throughout the course of the game. So like this breaking the cycle of revenge and the cycle of violence is not perfect. It's almost like they're like, oh, those people you're fighting in the restaurant, they don't really matter. What matters is sparing the main five.
Fair enough. Do you kill them though? Like, are you sure you kill them?
Dude, if you don't kill them, it's like
you're
Kiryu.
hospitalizing a ton of people.
It's like Kiryu or Batman, right? Like you're breaking jaws, you're breaking backbones. It's pretty brutal. A lot of there's a lot where you just like kind of slap them around until they fall down, but like you throat chop people. Like there's a lot of damage being done.
And there are like machetes as weapons that you slice people. So like you're at least sending them to the hospital in critical condition.
Oh yeah, there's the sword weapons. One of the finishing moves is you just like plunge it through their stomach. So
true,
yeah.
But so, not their heart. No, I'm kidding.
yeah. They'll need a feeding tube for the rest of their life. But it was one of those things. It's like I was like very on board with like this romantic breaking the revenge chain type thing, and then I was like, as I'm going through, I'm like, I just threw that guy off of, the 5th floor in the museum. He's probably not okay.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to make it.
Yeah, he's not going to be in Sifu 2. So
yeah, to be fair, I'm glad they're not making a Sifu 2.
Yeah. So yeah, anything else about Sifu here before we wrap this up?
No, I mean, I think there's so much here, and I did watch some supplementary material that go into like bigger lore and things like that, and there's a lot that can be unpacked if there was the time to do it. But I think this has been like a great way to sum it all up and hit the the important points of the game for sure.
Yeah, if you want to like be the lore hound and like read, like really pore over all the newspaper clippings and documents and stuff like that you find, there is a lot. Like, we didn't really talk about most of the boss fights and like their deep backstory, but there is a lot more here than we've actually talked about. So, I don't often do that on the show. It's not my job to do that. So unless I'm like super jazzed about going that deep, I don't often do it on the show.
Hell yeah.
I'm the interest of time
not that
and
jazzed.
Preparation. Yeah, it is cool. Like me saying that I didn't want to take the time and do all of that doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy reading them in the game. But for the purposes of this, I think we got the highlights, we'll say.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on and talking about Sifu with me, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. There is, I guess, one more thing. I probably should have said this like 10 seconds ago. Oh. But Yang brings you back again.
He does, yeah.
At the end when you achieve Wuda, like you're dead.
Yeah. So there's that cutscene where he grabs the thing. He grabs the thing off of your waist, and then like you die because you don't have the talisman, and then he brings you back again. So like one final chance, just like, hey man, don't fuck this up.
Right.
Giving you another chance.
You spared me. I'll bring you back again.
Yeah. It is interesting, but yeah, I appreciate you taking the time, dude. It had been too long since you were on the show. I'm glad we got you back for a fun one.
Oh, it's a pleasure, dude. It's always fun coming on, and I can't thank you enough for having me on. I loved Sifu, so I appreciate it.
Of course. Well, you were the first person I thought of when it was time to pick a guest. Once I knew this was going to be on the show, I was like, Ryan really liked that. It's been too long. Let's get Ryan back. So,
heck yeah.
Good times.
Yeah, for sure.
Everybody watching or listening, thank you for making it to the end. I'll give one more call for you to check out List Off. Check down in the show notes for links so you can check out the podcast. List Off is worth your time. Brian and Ryan are good people, and you should support the work that they do. And you're my hero if you've listened to the end. As always, tune in next week for the next game to come out of the backlog.
Do you have a gaming subscription service like Xbox Game Pass or a crazy backlog and don't know what to play next? Well, 1H1D might be for you. Join me, Chris, and my college buddy Tom as we play a random game or a requested game for an hour and decide if it's worth playing past that hour. We go over the good, the bad, and maybe some little tidbits about the development you might not have known. Got 30 minutes? Give us a try, and if you like it, throw us a 5-star review. Try something new. You never know what might be your next favorite game.
Welcome to Bits of Time, where we ask you the simple question, is this video game worth your time? And we're two brothers having a conversation about a game and why we loved it.
Or a difficult discussion about why I didn't or we didn't beat a game. So I hope you join us.
Because it gets pretty wacky sometimes with the questions we ask each other, and maybe a little heated every once in a while too. If you plan on sticking around, you'll be getting 2 episodes each month, the first and third Wednesday.
We also have a brand new debate-focused series, so if you want to be a part of it, join us.
Yeah, join us. Or, reach out, get in contact with us, and maybe you could be on the show with us and debating all kinds of things, granular or not. We'll see you then.